Hi, I'm Venus O'Hara. I make content about holistic self-love. Welcome to a new video. Today I wanted to talk about narcissism and toxic relationships. I'm going to go through some of the common narcissistic behaviours that we can find in relationships, and then some of my own tips about how to overcome this. The reason I want to talk about this today is because the latest episode of my podcast is called The Orgasmic Lifestyle. I interview a narcissistic abuse recovery coach, and we take a deep dive into all the dynamics that can be present in these types of relationships and how to spot them and how to overcome, leave, and do lots of healing so you don't attract that in the future. Anyway, the word narcissism gets thrown around quite a lot on social media. I know on Instagram, for example, there's lots of Insta psychology, these carousels of how to spot this, which is great to raise awareness, but we must also always think, outside the box, that maybe what we are going through might not be exactly what people are saying online. So I think these things have to be taken with a pinch of salt. Anyway, I'm going to talk about some of the behaviours which can be quite common with, and also I want to make a distinction between what a narcissist is and what narcissistic behaviours can be, separating the person from the behaviours. Because we're not here to diagnose people, and only a psychologist or psychiatrist or someone like that can diagnose this. This is actually a personality, how would I call it, disorder maybe? Narcissistic personality disorder is something that's diagnosed. So, but I do believe that some people can have some of these behaviours and they are very toxic, even if they don't have that specific diagnosis. And I've been in so many situations in my life where I have experienced toxic dynamics, and it's really hard because sometimes you're you feel very attached to that person, you have hope, you see the best in them, and there is this kind of dynamic when things are good, it's kind of addictive almost, and then when they are bad, you feel terrible and they hook you back in, and it's just this very toxic cycle until you kind of think, oh my god, I can't take it anymore. And it can really bring you lots of disempowering thoughts and ideas about yourself as well. So anyway, let's go through some of these dynamics that are quite common. The first one is love bombing. Love bombing can be very powerful, and love bombing is when someone goes too much too quickly, too soon. That doesn't always mean they're a narcissist though, because some people really are kind of in love with love, and they might think, oh my god, this person is the perfect person. I always think in dating, it's good to kind of go slow. Sometimes people can be very enthusiastic at first. I think a lot of us who are single have this idea or this kind of list of attributes that we want in our perfect partner, and then we kind of meet someone who seemingly has those things, and then we can kind of go, all in, I've found the person. But often this is a projection, and we can often just hear what we want to hear kind of thing. But if someone's going too quick, too soon with the I love yous and declarations and big future plans, it's good to kind of, wait a little bit, because the right person will be patient with you. So always be careful about that. And I think, but just because someone's going quickly doesn't always mean they're a narcissist. But I think it's just good to play the waiting game in terms of dating. This can happen a lot with online dating. You can kind of be exchanging messages back and forth, all this projection, and you meet them in person, you're like, no. Or even if it's a good encounter, remember we always are showing the best sides of ourselves at first, and over time the cracks will start to appear. And with the right person, the cracks are going to be okay to deal with. They're not going to be kind of terrible, you know what I mean? Anyway, so love bombing. And I think a lot of us are quite sensitive to love bombing as well. And I think I am actually. I think people feel very seen when they hear emotional compliments and people who are really kind of serious about them, seemingly serious about them. So it's very good to be on guard about that. And I think to prevent that, I think it's important to have a very clear idea about what you want. And for me personally, I think it's a real red flag if someone is too kind of into me too soon, because I think they might be into other people too soon as well. It might be part of their character. I want someone who's going to kind of be a slow burn with me, and I want them to really want me and not just a person like me, you know what I mean? If that makes any sense. Another thing that can be kind of part of narcissistic behaviour is gaslighting. That's another word that gets thrown around a lot. And gaslighting is kind of when someone makes you doubt your reality. If you complain about something, they kind of twist it. That almost sounds like blame shifting as well. But to make you kind of doubt why you're complaining in the first place. So that's a real red flag as well. Another thing that can be kind of common with narcissistic behaviour is devaluing. When you start saying, oh, I did this great thing, or I'm reading this book, and they're like, I read that ages ago, just giving these subtle put downs. It's really kind of like, and then you kind of in your mind thinking, I need to do more to impress this person, which is not the right way to go at all. Another thing that's common is hot and cold behaviour, breadcrumbing, and that can keep you in a constant state of not knowing, and it's not good for your nervous system at all. But it's kind of addictive to have this push-pull all the time, because the pull just feels so good, and then when you don't have it, it makes you want it more. But that's not how a healthy relationship should be. Another thing would be blame shifting, as mentioned, when they kind of really flip it, and when you complain about something or something that they've done, they will say, well, you did this. It's like putting the attention back on something that you did. Another thing which is common is silent treatment as well. And I wouldn't say, well, that can be common, but I don't think just because someone does silent treatment it doesn't mean they're always a narcissist. I think silent treatment can be, some people don't find it easy to confront, and going and kind of retreating can be the safest thing they can do sometimes. But if it's a pattern, if it's done for manipulation, then obviously that's not a good thing. But I don't think it's always like that. It has to be kind of a pattern of many behaviours together. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about here, which there are many more behaviours, of course, is discarding and hoovering. Discard is like when they just kind of like forget about you, stop reaching out, maybe even leave you. And then hoovering is when they come back. So they kind of, it seems like the energy, they kind of can tell with your energy that you're not quite receptive anymore. They can kind of feel it, and then they kind of want to get back in to take control of your mind. Well, that sounds like a bit of an exaggeration, but they kind of like want to still be a big influence on your life. Something that's really helped me uncover some of these dynamics is, I know it sounds really crazy, but is AI, ChatGPT and Claude. I think sometimes it's interesting to analyze messages that we receive on WhatsApp or whatever you're using, or in email or stuff like that, and try and I sometimes use the prompt, what is the tone of this message? And this is something that really helped me a while ago, actually, when I was in a dynamic with someone, and I was really kind of, they were doing a lot of blame shifting with me, and I was like, I was starting to question my own messaging. And I started to ask AI, what is the tone of their message? What's the tone of my message? And I uncovered some of these terms I wasn't really aware of. Things like minimizing, which is the same as devaluing, kind of really undermining your complaints, undermining things that are important to you, and blame shifting, other things like that. And dismissiveness, which is another common trait as well. Oh, that's nothing. Oh, it doesn't matter, when it does matter, So that's kind of helped me a lot, actually. But you have to take, AI with a very big pinch of salt and lots of discernment if you are using it in a kind of therapeutic capacity. I do find it kind of fun to use while you're venting. And I've recently discovered Claude, and one of my friends told me about Claude, which seems like, if you've used it for these types of things, it's like your biased bestie who's really on your side, but will tell you how it is as well. And I think it's also good, if you're going to start analysing messages, to analyse what you're putting out there as well, and not to try to get in this dynamic of, well, they said a terrible thing, so I'm going to say a terrible thing, because I think that's a really toxic dynamic for both people. It doesn't help anyone. Lots of ego of being right. I think the right way to argue or disagree is always with respect. And I really love the framework of nonviolent communication, which is 4 parts. I can't remember it by heart now. I think it's something like observation. When I see this, I feel this, because my need for this is not met. Could you do this? So it's kind of observation, feelings, something, and then request, something like that. So it's really placing the emphasis on yourself and your feelings, not like, you didn't take the bins down. It's a bit more constructive than that. A little side note, I've just been watching Love is Blind. I just love it. I know some people might think it's trash TV. I watched the UK version and then I watched the French version, which is really interesting because I speak French, so it wasn't a complete waste of my time because I was practicing, etc., just my listening skills. And what was really interesting in it was how the couples had conflict and argue, and it was just terrible how it was all about me, I'm right. I'm going to show you up in front of this crowd because I'm right, and that's just getting more and more and more toxic, which brings a lot of resentment. So I think it's important to know how to raise issues with a partner in a healthy dynamic, someone who's willing to listen and learn. And another side note is I actually recently interviewed a woman called Dr. Rachel Glick. She has a book called A Soulful Marriage, and in it she has a whole section on how to leverage conflict and how to turn conflict into closeness. There is even a conflict constitution, so you can kind of agree on how you disagree. And if you're in a healthy relationship with a partner who wants to grow with you, they will be okay with kind of establishing this container for you to explore the things that might not be running smoothly for you. Because at the end of the day, relationships are complicated, and it's not always going to be plain sailing, and you have to be okay with that, and okay with not being okay, and being with someone who's open to learning and growing with you. And if they are, they'll be okay with that kind of thing. So I think it's a good idea to read books about relationships, because we don't learn this. I mean, we do have limited sex education in the school system, well, mostly, depending on where you live. But relationships is something that we learn from our parents, from social media, or even TV, and those dynamics are not always healthy. I know in TV and media, it's kind of people like the avoidant attachment, the seducing the impossible. A lot of these games keep people hooked on a story, and we're not always seeing something that's a healthy representation of relationships. So how are we going to work it out? Just kind of going back to I want this, I'm right, I'm this, it's just not really the way. I think we really have to be dedicated to that growth if you want to have a fulfilling relationship. So ChatGPT can really help, and also you can ask for prompts and discussion points to actually overcome some of the hurdles that you can have. Of course, speaking to a therapist is great, but I do think to vent it can be quite good, but obviously working with a therapist is a great idea. Another thing that's really helped me with my own kind of love journey is really focusing on self-love, because I think if you are attracting these dynamics with people who are not really respecting your boundaries or your wishes, I think you really have to work on self-love. And I actually asked Claude about my own tone and my own kind of limitations, and it said self-abandonment, which I really am guilty of. So I'm really working on my own self-abandonment and trying to really choose myself, show up for myself in a better way. And it's so interesting to see when you start working on yourself, how your external world starts to shift as well. You start to feel more seen by others. You start to attract more, well, in my case, I'm starting to attract a lot more interesting friendship dynamics happening, and just a lot of blessings. So I think working on self-love is so important, because when you have self-love, self-respect, self-worth, you're going to have better standards, and you're going to have firmer boundaries that you're going to respect and expect someone else to respect as well. It's really important to do that. Another thing that's really helped me as well is journaling. And I went through a situation where I was missing a dynamic which wasn't healthy, and I started to journal with some love prompts about the ideal day, the ideal relationship. And I know ideal doesn't mean perfect, but I realized that what I was grieving, was nothing like what I really wanted. And when you see that difference, nothing terrible here. When you see that difference, you'll start to kind of maybe detach from that dynamic. And something that's really been present in my life is I've had so many toxic relationships in my life. I've placed a lot of importance on sex, because I'm a sexpert, so sex has always been very important for me, and I've often maybe put good sex on a pedestal to the expense of maybe healthy dynamics. So I've often been in situations where And or sometimes these unhealthy dynamics have made the sex better, which is really toxic. And that's how I actually got into sex toys, first of all, a long time ago now, because I said to myself, I need to break this pattern of being with these guys who are emotionally unavailable but sexually explosive. So that's when I got my very first rabbit, which is I've already shared with you on here, and how that really changed my life to actually be, in contact with myself, to have these wonderful experiences, physical experiences that I didn't really rely on a stranger or another person to give me. Because sometimes feeling that you need someone is never good. There should always be a plus. And then, last thing here on my list is subconscious reprogramming. I have a list of 20 prompts for subconscious reprogramming. If you're interested in that, please message me, venus@venusohara.org, and I will send them to you, because they are so good. And you can do these prompts with any limiting belief. It can be related to money, to love, to friends, to work, anything you want. And it's really interesting to go through this process of identifying something you believe around love or anything, and then really unpacking that belief and seeing that it's not true and how it's serving you as well, and rewriting that belief to create something new. So I've been doing a lot of work on myself around love, because I do think now I'm ready for something amazing. I've had a lot of times in my life where I have put up with really, breadcrumbs, and I think it comes down to not feeling like I deserve something healthy and fruitful and loving, whereas I don't believe that anymore. So as such, my life is starting to shift around me as well. But yeah, I have had many situations of narcissistic behaviours that I've dealt with, and I've just put up with way too much. But anyway, it's all part of a learning journey. And if you are in these types of dynamics, or you're recovering from something, I encourage you to check out the latest episode of the Orgasmic Lifestyle podcast, available on any podcast platform. And we take a deep dive into someone who is an expert in these topics, and you can really learn a lot from her. And also at the end, there is a meditation for relationship release, which is, when you've had enough. So that can help you get some courage. It's never easy when you are emotionally attached to someone, you love their pheromones, you feel like your bodies fit together, and but at the same time it's just not making you happy. You're crying more than you're smiling. Yeah, so that can be very hard. Also, I would like to share my life upgrade meditation, which is 100 powerful affirmations. That's for free. It's in the caption below. There's a link to sign up for that. And yeah, so check out all my stuff in the description below. Anyway, if you have any suggestions for new videos, please let me know, because I really want to get into this more, into these topics a bit more, and personal development, spirituality, and holistic self-love. So if you have any requests for content, you'll be doing me a huge favour. Yeah, let's help each other. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you soon. Mwah.